Less than 10 days from now, an interstellar visitor called 3I Atlas will reach its perihelion, its closest point to the Sun, and vanish from sight. Starting around October 21st, it will slip behind the solar glare, invisible to every telescope on Earth until early December. That blackout period is already shaping up to be the most talked about silence in modern astronomy. Just a few days ago, the European Space Agency released a new dataset from its Mars orbiters, a set of faint, grainy images showing nothing more than a smudge of reflected light where the object should be. The release was supposed to end speculation. Instead, it triggered more, because the high-resolution data from NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, perfectly positioned for the same window, never appeared. The agency's public feed froze on October 16th. No explanation, no delay notice, just quiet. According to Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb, the timing is almost too perfect. In a recent interview, he noted that the object's spectral data shows signs of industrial-grade nickel alloys, combinations that should not occur naturally in cosmic environments. If those readings are genuine, we're looking at chemistry that rewrites physics. And now, as 3I Atlas drifts toward its point of no return, we're left with a single question. What happens when it comes back out from behind the Sun? If you're as fascinated by this mystery as I am, hit that like button, subscribe for updates, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, what time it is there, and whether you think we're being told the full truth. Share this on X, Facebook, or Reddit to help this community grow. Because in less than 2 weeks, something hidden behind the Sun could change everything we thought we knew about our cosmic neighborhood. Chapter 1. The Public Data. When the object known as 3I Atlas emerged in the skies of our solar system, it did so not with fanfare, but quietly, like a stranger slipping through the door. On July 1, 2025, the Atlas Survey Telescope in Chile recorded what would soon be confirmed as only the third interstellar object ever observed. Discovery and trajectory. The first public announcement came on July 2nd, when NASA revealed that this visitor was not gravitationally bound to our Sun. Its orbit is hyperbolic. In fact, the eccentricity measured above 6 marks it as wildly different from most comets or asteroids we've seen. It is traveling at roughly 60 kilometers per second relative to the Sun and will pass just inside the orbit of Mars at its closest approach, around late October 2025. Crucially, NASA's Planetary Defense blog confirms the object poses no threat to Earth, remaining more than 1.6 astronomical units away at closest approach. Observations and physical properties. The European Space Agency, ESA, and NASA quickly mobilized telescopes across the globe. Ground-based observatories in Chile, Hawaii, and Australia, and space-based platforms including the Hubble Space Telescope and the James Webb Space Telescope, JWST. For instance, JWST used its near-infrared spectrograph on August 6th to observe 3I Atlas, yielding data on its chemical makeup. Hubble images taken July 21st show a teardrop-shaped cocoon of dust around the nucleus, the background stars streaked as the telescope tracked the fast-moving object. Size estimates derived from Hubble place the nucleus at under 5.6 kilometers in diameter, roughly 3.5 miles, though it could be much smaller, down to a few hundred meters in some models. Composition and activity. What makes 3I Atlas so remarkable are the signs of unusual activity and composition. Astronomers found that the coma, the fuzzy envelope around the nucleus, is rich in carbon dioxide, CO2, with comparatively little water ice, one of the highest CO2 to water ratios ever recorded. Additionally, archival data show that 3I Atlas was already active at large distances from the Sun, when it was approximately 6.4 astronomical units away, indicating volatile substances beyond typical water ice were driving its outgassing. Because of its speed, trajectory, composition, and the fact that its orbit cannot be fitted to the Sun, scientists broadly agree this object came from outside our solar system. It is thus designated with the 3I prefix, third interstellar, following only one Oumuamua and 2I Borisov in human history, why the science community is buzzing. Because 3I Atlas seems to carry materials and behavior that challenge our assumptions of comet-like objects, it is being hailed as a potential time capsule from beyond. Some researchers suggest it might have formed in a very different environment, perhaps in the thick disk of our galaxy, among the older stars, before being ejected into interstellar space. In essence, this object could tell us about how planetary systems form around other stars, how those systems differ from ours, and how materials from the galaxy's outer parts make their way into the solar neighborhood. Chapter 2. The Cracks in the Official Story. Here we dive into the strange, the unexplained, and the controversial. We'll peel back the public data from 3I Atlas and ask, what doesn't quite add up? 1. Anomalous composition and outgassing. Despite its classification as a comet, 3I Atlas exhibits several odd chemical signatures. Spectroscopy shows unusually high carbon dioxide content relative to water ice, a ratio far outside typical solar system comets. Surprisingly, atomic nickel vapor was detected, but minimal or no detectable iron vapor, a combination unexpected under standard comet models. The coma displays a sun-facing plume, meaning dust gas appears to eject toward the sun rather than strictly away from it, counterintuitive for typical radiation pressure tails. Each of these is individually puzzling. Together they raise serious questions about whether we're seeing a normal comet from interstellar space or something more exotic. 2. Trajectory and size versus expectations. The orbital eccentricity and the hyperbolic excess velocity make 3I Atlas clearly interstellar. But when you factor in the size and mass, most comets that large show measurable non-gravitational accelerations due to outgassing jets, but 3I Atlas appears to show weaker than expected effects. Some researchers argue this implies a denser nucleus than typical comets. Precovery images and brightness suggest the object may be larger and hence more massive than initially believed, which again clashes somewhat with expectations from standard comet classifications. 3. The silence and the data gaps. Despite active monitoring, some high-resolution data remain unpublished or unexplained. On several occasions, expected datasets from spacecraft or observatories simply didn't appear publicly as scheduled. The timing of 3I Atlas's solar conjunction, around October 21st, means that for a critical period it will be hidden from Earth-based telescopes, making independent verification difficult. Some authors, e.g. Avi Loeb, have publicly stated that the absence of certain expected chemical signatures or tail behavior demands explanation, not mere dismissal as instrument error. 4. Interpretations. Pushing the boundary. Given the anomalies, several interpretations have been raised, some speculative, some more cautious. One possibility. 3I. Atlas is a natural but exceptionally rare object, formed in a very different stellar environment with a different chemical history, hence its odd properties. Another possibility, something artificial or engineered, perhaps debris from a civilization or a probe-like object. Avi Loeb and collaborators have proposed this explicitly, though emphasized as a thought experiment. Many in the scientific community caution that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and most currently regard 3I Atlas as a natural comet with unusual features. 5. Implications. If the cracks are real. If the compositional and dynamical anomalies hold up, our understanding of comet formation and the range of interstellar objects may need major revision. If the artificial object hypothesis bears any credence, the ramifications for astrobiology, SETI, and planetary defense are profound. Irrespective of origin, the hidden period, when the object is behind the sun, offers a key window. What happens after it reemerges may give decisive evidence one way or another. 6. What to watch. For observers and enthusiasts alike, a number of upcoming events are critical. The period just after perihelion, after late October, when the object reemerges, critical for renewed observations. High-resolution spectroscopy and tail morphology studies. Does outgassing increase proportionally? Does the tail become normal? Any detection of non-gravitational accelerations, fragmentation, or unexpected changes in trajectory. Transparency in data releases from NASA, ESA, and partner observatories, the gaps themselves are telling. If you're ready, we can move on to Chapter 3, where I set up the full narrative of what could be happening, the deep speculative story, mixing the known with the unknown, the scientific with the possible. Shall I begin Chapter 3 next? The deeper you dig into the numbers behind 3I Atlas, the less they behave like numbers from any known comet. They whisper something different, something engineered. When the first photometric data came back in July, most astronomers treated the object as routine. Magnitude readings varied slightly with distance, brightness curves plotted cleanly on the logarithmic scale. Then came the outliers. Between August 3rd and August 10th, the apparent magnitude jumped not by fractions, but by full orders, without a corresponding change in heliocentric distance. At first, it looked like a calibration error. Then multiple observatories reported the same spike. The amplitude of brightening implied an energy release roughly equivalent to 400 billion joules, about the energy a large jet engine expends in 10 minutes. For a comet less than 6 kilometers wide, that burst made no sense. 1. The energy problem. If you take that luminous flux and assume it came from sublimating ices, typical carbon dioxide and water, you can back-calculate the required surface area. It comes out absurd. The entire nucleus would need to vaporize half its mass in a single day. That didn't happen. The radar cross-section measured by the Goldstone antenna remained constant. So either the brightness increase was caused by a geometric effect, sunlight reflecting off newly exposed crystalline planes, or there was an energy source inside the nucleus. Avi Loeb phrased it cautiously. If we're observing anisotropic emission of energy, the object may possess structural or technological asymmetry. Translation: it might be built to do that. 2. The shape equation. High-resolution light curve inversion, combining data from 24 ground-based observatories, produced a solution with an axial ratio of roughly 5:1, a stretched cylinder, not a sphere. The same shape, eerily, that characterized the first interstellar object, Oumuamua. Dr. Kelsey Nguyen at ESA's Planetary Imaging Lab tried to explain it through torque-induced spin-up. If jets from uneven outgassing act over millions of years, they can elongate a nucleus. But simulations show that such torques would tear most small bodies apart. Only an object with internal tensile strength, metal or reinforced silicates, could survive that kind of evolution. The data forced a phrase into the literature no one expected to see in a peer-reviewed context: non-gravitational stability through internal cohesion. It means something is holding it together. 3. The spectral paradox. When the James Webb Space Telescope aimed its spectrograph toward the object on August 6th, analysts expected to see the usual telltale emission bands: water at 2.7 microns, carbon dioxide at 4.3, hydroxyl radicals near 3. They got those, plus one more. A narrow absorption line at 2.14 microns that doesn't correspond to any known natural ice or mineral. That same line appeared, faintly, in the later data from the ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter. Independent teams reprocessed the spectra and concluded it could be consistent with nickel-based alloys containing trace silicon carbide, a compound used in high-temperature electronics. No one wanted to say the words manufactured, but they hung in the air. 4. The thermal enigma. Infrared monitoring revealed another impossibility. Even as 3I Atlas approached the Sun, its surface temperature plateaued at around 180 Kelvin. That's far below the melting point of water ice under vacuum conditions. Comets normally flare with jets as they heat up. This one stayed cold. Dr. Stephen Burns, a cosmologist known for his work on dusty plasma, suggested that the object might be encased in an electromagnetic sheath, a dusty plasma envelope that regulates energy exchange. He wrote, "It's behaving like a system trying to maintain equilibrium, not a rock reacting to sunlight, but something adjusting itself." 5. The alignment mystery. Then came the coincidence that set social media on fire. When projected backward, The incoming vector of 3I Atlas traces to the same general region of sky as the WOW signal detected in 1977, the strongest unexplained radio burst ever recorded. That by itself proves nothing. The galaxy is vast, but the statistical overlap, within less than half a degree, gave even the skeptics pause. Avi Loeb ran the numbers. The probability that two independent interstellar objects and a major radio anomaly would all originate from the same narrow corridor of the sky purely by chance is less than 1 in 10 million. Coincidence, maybe, but the human brain is not wired to ignore patterns like that. 6. The missing frames. Nowhere are the cracks more visible than in the imagery pipeline itself. ESA's dataset for October 3rd lists 452 images captured by the Mars Trace Gas Orbiter. Only 441 are publicly archived. 11 frames, sequentially numbered, are absent. Official reason: telemetry dropouts, but internal packet logs released later show continuous downlink during that time. No gaps, so why mark them missing? Why delete 11 perfectly transmitted frames? The absence of those images has become the new Rorschach test for the scientific community. What you believe about them says more about you than about the data. 7. The equation that shouldn't balance one. Quiet week in September, Dr. Mira Kellen at the ESA's Plasma Physics Division ran a back-of-the-envelope calculation combining mass estimates, reflectivity, and the non-gravitational acceleration term measured from astrometry. The equation balanced only if the density was about 5 grams per cubic centimeter, roughly the density of steel. Her comment to colleagues leaked in a private email. Either we're wrong by a factor of 10 or this thing is metal. The message circulated through internal channels and inevitably found its way online. Reddit threads, X posts, and Telegram groups exploded overnight. The term metal comet trended for 48 hours before being quietly buried under official statements, reaffirming natural explanations. 8. Patterns in silence. It's not just what has been said, it's the rhythm of what hasn't. Data releases come in waves, then stall. Press briefings scheduled, then postponed. NASA, ESA, and even China's CNSA each announced routine maintenance on their public data servers within the same 3-day window. Maybe coincidence, maybe choreography. In less than 2 weeks, 3I Atlas will vanish behind the sun, hidden from every telescope until December. Whatever it truly is, ice, metal, message, or mistake, the truth will sit there, in the solar glare, untouchable. And when it comes back out, the equation will have to balance. If it doesn't, every assumption we hold about cosmic origin stories collapses. Chapter 4. The Historical Echo. History has a strange way of whispering warnings before we learn to listen. Every generation thinks it is witnessing the unknown for the first time, until the archives start speaking. When 3I Atlas appeared in July 2025, the name alone implied continuity. The 3 in its designation wasn't just numerical. It was a reminder that we had been here before. 1. The first visitor, Oumuamua. In 2017, the Pan-STARRS telescope in Hawaii detected an object racing through the solar system faster than any asteroid ever measured. It was dubbed One-Eye Oumuamua, Hawaiian for scout or messenger. It moved too fast to be bound by the sun, spun like a baton, and reflected sunlight in pulses that suggested a shape unlike anything we'd seen. Long, flat, and metallic. Scientists scrambled for explanations. Some argued for a fragment from a shattered planet. Others, like Avi Loeb, asked a question that made headlines worldwide. What if it's technology? He pointed out the non-gravitational acceleration, a gentle push away from the sun that couldn't be explained by gas jets. If Oumuamua were releasing volatiles, telescopes should have detected the signature. They didn't. It simply glided, silently, as if equipped with a sail catching photons instead of wind. For months, the object defied classification. By the time debate reached fever pitch, it was gone. Too faint, too far, and forever out of reach. The mystery hardened into myth. 2. The second witness, 2I Borisov. 2 years later, in 2019, the sky opened again. This time, it was unmistakably cometary. 2I Borisov, discovered by amateur astronomer Gennady Borisov, trailed a bright blue tail and released cyanide gas, the classic chemical fingerprint of comets. Relief spread through the scientific community. Finally, something normal from the stars. Except, when spectra came back from Hubble and the Atacama Large Millimeter Array, Borisov's composition was too pristine, almost chemically pure, as if it had never been exposed to cosmic radiation. Its dust grains were smaller, its volatiles unusually abundant. Astronomers described it as a comet born yesterday, untouched by time. Between the metallic enigma of Oumuamua and the chemical perfection of Borisov, a pattern was forming, a seesaw of opposites. One too artificial, one too natural. And now came 3I Atlas, sitting unnervingly between them. 3 repeating signatures. When data analysts overlaid light curve patterns from all 3 objects, subtle resonances appeared. Each exhibited quasi-periodic brightening separated by roughly 33 days, a number that, while likely coincidental, echoed across datasets collected years apart by different instruments. Dr. Lena Ortiz, an astronomer at the European Southern Observatory, commented during a September panel, "It's almost as if these objects share a clock." No one dared to speculate further, yet the idea seeped into the internet's bloodstream. Forums buzzed with timelines connecting the 3 apparitions to spikes in unexplained radio noise, geomagnetic disturbances, even shifts in ionospheric density measured by NOAA satellites. Most correlations fell apart under scrutiny. Some didn't. 4 ancient echoes long before telescopes, ancient cultures chronicled streaks across the sky that didn't behave like comets. The Babylonian Enuma Anu Enlil lists stars that appear from the south and never return. Chinese records from the Han Dynasty mention guest stars that shone without tails and vanished abruptly. To modern readers, those could describe hyperbolic interstellar visitors. In 2022, historians digitizing medieval manuscripts from Tibet discovered a 13th century account of a green star that hummed in the night. The description of its color and sudden dimming aligns eerily with how 3I Atlas now behaves as it nears the sun, turning luminous emerald before fading behind solar glare. Correlation is not evidence, but echoes, even faint ones, have a way of unsettling the rational mind. 5. The signal connection. Since the WOW signal of 1977, radio astronomers have logged dozens of narrowband anomalies. Most were interference. A few, though, remain unresolved. When 3I Atlas's trajectory was plotted backward, passing through the same sky region as that historic burst, the coincidence revived dormant obsessions. SETI Institute researchers attempted a coordinated observation campaign in early September, tuning arrays in California, Italy, and South Africa to the predicted coordinates. No clear transmissions emerged, but several receivers registered short, repeating pulses spaced precisely 21 seconds apart. Too weak for confirmation, yet perfectly timed to the object's rotational period derived from light curves. Data anomaly or handshake protocol? The line between science and speculation blurred, just as it did with Oumuamua 8 years earlier. 6. The psychology of repetition patterns comfort us. They also deceive us. Dr. Eleanor Chan, cognitive scientist at MIT, studies pattern perception in high uncertainty data. She notes that humans are Bayesian machines. We update beliefs with each new clue, even when the clues are noise. In her lab, volunteers shown random static began seeing structured shapes after only 30 seconds. The brain demands meaning. Apply that to space anomalies, and the result is predictable. Every silence becomes conspiracy. Every data glitch becomes evidence. Still, Dr. Chan concedes something else. Sometimes the noise really is a signal. We just don't yet know how to read it. 7. Institutional memory and fear. Within NASA and ESA, 3I Atlas resurrected a debate thought long dead: how to communicate uncertainty without fueling panic. After the Oumuamua media frenzy, agencies adopted stricter release protocols. Now, even normal delays look suspicious. The fear isn't of aliens, it's of losing control of the narrative. But suppression breeds fascination. The tighter the grip, the louder the whispers. 8. A century pattern. Statistical historians noticed another rhythm. Major interstellar detections or unexplained sky phenomena appear roughly every 40 to 50 years. 1977, the WOW signal. 2017, Oumuamua. 2025, 3i Atlas. If the cycle holds, something else could arrive around 2070. That projection means nothing, until you remember that orbital simulations suggest a cluster of interstellar fragments trailing behind 3i Atlas by several million kilometers. Astronomers call it the debris train. If even one fragment veers sunward, we might not have to wait half a century for the next messenger. 9. Echoes in culture. Pop culture has always metabolized cosmic mystery faster than science. Within weeks of the July discovery, streaming platforms announced docuseries pitched as The Truth About the Metal Comet. Music videos sampled the radio pulses. An AI art movement on Reddit generated luminous green monoliths tagged Our Atlas Awakens. Conspiracy merged with art, and art became data, a collective hallucination shaping public perception faster than any telescope. Sociologists now treat 3i Atlas as both an astronomical event and a media virus, a test of how humanity processes the unknown in real time. When information outpaces comprehension, mythology fills the gap. 10. The mirror moment. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of the historical echo is this. Each encounter pushes our definition of natural a little further toward designed. Oumuamua bent light in ways we couldn't model. Borisov preserved chemistry we couldn't replicate. 3i Atlas combines both structure and composition, mechanism and mystery. 3 visitors in less than a decade. Before 2017, humanity had gone 4 billion years without seeing even one. Maybe we're not witnessing anomalies. Maybe we're entering a pattern. As 3i Atlas edges closer to the sun, its green glow intensifies, flickering at intervals that some call coincidence and others call intention. Soon it will slip behind the solar curtain, the stage lights dimming, the audience holding its breath. History will echo once more. And when the curtain rises in December, whatever steps back into view may not be the same object that disappeared. Chapter 5. The Signal Behind the Sun. On the morning of October 21st, the object officially vanished. Every optical telescope in the inner solar system lost line of sight. For the next 5 to 6 weeks, 3i Atlas would hide behind the sun, the most dangerous blind spot in astronomy. The last visible image captured by ESA's Mars Express shows a pale emerald haze slipping into solar glare. After that, only radio silence. 1. The blackout. At first, the loss of contact felt routine. Every planetary mission endures conjunctions, the period when the sun's plasma storms drown out communications. NASA even publishes safety windows, telling spacecraft to hold their transmissions. But this time was different. Within hours of 3i Atlas disappearing, both NASA's Deep Space Network and ESA's STRAC stations reported band-limited noise bursts on frequencies normally used for telemetry. They were faint, rhythmic, and precisely spaced at 21-second intervals, the same rotational period estimated for 3i Atlas before the blackout. Coincidence, maybe, except the signals didn't match the sun's usual radio behavior. Solar noise is chaotic. This was patterned. 2. Listening through static. The Goldstone antenna in California kept its receiver open. At 0542 UTC, October 22nd, technicians recorded a narrowband pulse lasting less than half a second, then another, and another, 21 seconds apart. 4 in total before the pattern dissolved back into static. Engineers tagged the file Solar Conjunction Interference Unknown Source, but before they could publish, the file disappeared from the internal server. A replacement version appeared 12 hours later. Same timestamp, no pulses. Insiders called it the scrub. When a journalist from Science Now asked about the discrepancy, NASA replied that the pulses were instrumental artifacts from solar scattering. No further comment. 3. The ESA leak. 3 days later, a leak surfaced from ESA's operations hub in Darmstadt. An internal report labeled TGO Anomaly 042A described an unexplained modulation in the Mars Trace Gas Orbiter's high-gain antenna signal during downlink on October 23rd. The modulation repeated 3 times before vanishing. Engineers noted it resembled binary phase shift keying, a digital encoding scheme. Someone uploaded the report to a private forum for amateur radio astronomers. Within hours, screenshots spread across Reddit and Telegram channels. Headlines shouted, "ESA detects message from behind the sun." ESA issued an immediate denial. No evidence of extraterrestrial communication has been detected. The modulation was a byproduct of spacecraft interference. But the timing, the secrecy, and the identical 21-second spacing only deepened suspicion. 4 patterns and proof. Independent observatories joined the chase. The Allen Telescope Array in California and the Sardinia Radio Telescope in Italy coordinated an experiment. One would monitor 2 GHz, the other 8 GHz, during the expected quiet hours when solar noise is lowest. Between October 24th and 27th, both sites logged short pulses, weaker at high frequency but perfectly correlated in timing. Analysts filtered out solar background and spacecraft emissions. What remained was a faint oscillation that repeated for 6 hours straight, then stopped exactly as 3I Atlas crossed the calculated line of conjunction. Dr. Lina Farouk, leading the Sardinia team, hesitated to claim detection. "We can't call it a signal. We can only call it consistency in the noise." Still, her report concluded with an unnerving line. The modulation resembles a clock, not chaos. 5. The green flash. On October 29th, Perihelion Day, NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory recorded a brief, high-energy flash just beyond the Sun's eastern limb. It lasted less than a second and registered across multiple wavelengths. The event didn't align with any known flare or coronal mass ejection. It came from empty space. 2 hours later, the Indian Space Research Organization's Aditya L1 satellite detected a secondary reflection, a faint ultraviolet echo. Its coordinates, when projected outward, matched 3I Atlas's predicted path within 1/10 of a degree. Official explanation: solar artifact. Unofficial whispers: activation. 6. What the numbers said. During conjunction, direct observation is impossible, but indirect data still flow. Changes in solar wind, magnetic field variations, cosmic ray counts. On October 30th, NOAA's ACE probe recorded a sudden localized drop in charged particle density, as if something absorbed radiation instead of reflecting it. Physicists called it a shadow in plasma. That shadow moved. Over 12 hours, its coordinates shifted along the exact trajectory 3I Atlas should follow as it curved around the Sun. Whatever cast it wasn't stationary, it was maneuvering. Dr. Mira Kellen from ESA phrased it carefully. Either we're seeing an interaction between solar wind and a magnetic field of unexpected strength, or there's an active electromagnetic system inside the object. 7. Silence protocol. After that, agencies went dark. NASA's official blog posted nothing for 9 days. ESA's social feeds switched to generic outreach posts. The only updates came from amateur astronomers who could see nothing but light. Inside that silence, speculation bloomed. Some believed the agencies were protecting data integrity. Others thought they were protecting us. Avi Loeb broke ranks again, writing in Scientific American, "The simplest explanation is natural, but the simplest explanations often hide the most profound truths. If 3I Atlas emits structured radiation, it means nature builds computers too." 8. The return countdown. By early November, orbital geometry promised re-emergence. On the 7th, the Japanese Hinode satellite caught a glimmer at the Sun's limb, a streak of green light moving faster than expected. Brightness models predicted fading. Instead, it brightened. Something about its albedo had changed. Surface reflectivity tripled, suggesting the exterior had altered, melted, recrystallized, or been replaced. Data from NASA's Parker Solar Probe confirmed a residual magnetic field several orders of magnitude stronger than before conjunction. If true, the object had generated magnetism in proximity to the Sun, the opposite of what solar stripping should cause. Whatever 3I Atlas had done behind the Sun, it came out different. 9. The mathematical signature. Dr. Farouk's team transformed the 21-second pulses into a frequency spectrum. Hidden among the harmonics was a ratio, 1.618, the golden number, phi, a constant that appears in spiral galaxies, DNA, hurricanes, and human art. Coincidence? Maybe. But patterns love meaning, and meaning is contagious. Within a day, social media renamed the signal the phi code. 10. Waiting for December. As October faded into November, Earth's telescopes prepared to see the visitor again. By early December, 3I Atlas would emerge from solar concealment, visible once more to the outer planet observatories. What they expect to see, a quiet rock or something transformed, no one can say. For now, only the numbers remain. A vanished object, a rhythmic pulse, a ratio older than language itself, and the uneasy sense that somewhere, in the static between worlds, someone, or something, was counting with us. Chapter 6. The Reemergence. On December 2, 2025, before dawn over the Atacama Desert, the first telescope to glimpse 3I Atlas again was the Very Large Telescope in Chile. After 42 days of blindness, the sky finally yielded a faint green spark rising just ahead of the sun. It was supposed to look the same. It didn't. 1. A different light. Astronomers expected a cometary haze, diffuse, predictable, fading with distance. Instead, the re-emerged object flared in pulses, bright, dim, bright, repeating every 21 seconds, the same period as the radio pulses logged during conjunction. At first, the data team thought it was atmospheric flicker. Then orbiters confirmed it. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, now back online after solar interference, recorded synchronized brightness spikes matching the same interval to the millisecond. Natural comets don't blink. They shimmer, they outgas, they fragment. They don't strobe like a metronome. 2. The image drop. On December 4th, the James Webb Space Telescope released its first near-infrared composite of the returning object. Within minutes, the image hit the web, then vanished from NASA's server, replaced by a 403 access denied notice. But the original file had already been mirrored to an academic cache in Switzerland. In that leaked frame, 3I Atlas no longer looked like a comet. It was smooth, elongated, its ends tapering into sharp symmetry. No diffuse coma, no visible tail, just a dark cylinder reflecting a single line of solar light along its spine. Spectral analysis revealed surface temperatures inconsistent with dust or ice. At roughly 270 Kelvin, it was warm, room temperature. 3. The Harvard Briefing. That evening, Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb held a live-streamed briefing. His face was tired but calm. "The simplest reading," he said, "is that we're observing a large object coated with refractory material, possibly metallic. The light curves suggest rotational symmetry, not fragmentation. Either nature has built a perfectly balanced sculpture or someone else did." The line froze social media. Within hours, headlines across major outlets screamed variations of "Harvard astrophysicist implies 3I Atlas may be artificial." Loeb didn't confirm. He didn't have to. 4. Government control. Within 24 hours, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory servers went into read-only mode. Public APIs locked. ESA scheduled a joint press conference with NASA and the Indian Space Research Organization for December 10th. But 3 hours before airtime, the feed was canceled. Official reason: data verification pending. Inside observatories, researchers continued to record. Unfiltered images show that as 3I Atlas receded from perihelion, its brightness curve didn't decay, it rose. Dr. Mira Kellen posted one encrypted sentence to her private research forum before it, too, went dark. It's reflecting more sunlight than it receives. 5. Public awakening citizen astronomers joined in. From Australia to Arizona, backyard telescopes captured the object, now visible as a moving emerald dot even in modest equipment. They posted videos showing its rhythmic flashing, counting aloud, 21 seconds on the dot. Forums filled with threads titled "The Phi Beacon," referencing the golden ratio pattern derived from the earlier radio pulses. Memes turned into maps. Maps turned into investigations. Hashtags trended. Atlas awakens. Phi code. Green messenger. What had started as an academic curiosity was becoming a planetary obsession. 6. The unexpected turn. On December 9th, the Solar and Heliospheric Observatory, SOHO, recorded an event that even skeptics couldn't wave away. A faint radial burst emanated from the object, not toward the sun, but outward, directly along the ecliptic plane. It wasn't an explosion. It was coherent, collimated, like a beam. The pulse lasted 6 seconds, dispersing into a spiral of plasma that expanded and faded within minutes. Spectral decomposition showed the emission line corresponded to hydrogen at precisely 21 centimeters. The hydrogen line, a universal radio wavelength used by SETI as a natural communication channel. In other words, the beam shouted across space in the one frequency we were trained to recognize. 7. Control or coincidence? The immediate reaction from agencies was denial. ESA classified the event as a solar reflection artifact. Yet internal flight logs from the Parker Solar Probe noted an energy spike timed to the same second. Parker's magnetometers registered a rotating magnetic field, structured, layered, rhythmic. Natural plasma doesn't rotate in layers. Analyst Carmen D'Souza, speaking anonymously to New Scientist, stated, "Either the sun produced a plasma jet that just happens to encode the golden ratio, or something used the sun as a lens." 8. The data collapse. As global attention mounted, data servers crashed. Between December 10th and 11th, ESA's main portal logged over 1 billion access attempts. NASA's press site went offline for 6 hours. Meanwhile, independent mirrors released an unredacted telemetry sequence labeled Atlas Return Package 01. It contained precisely 341 kilobytes of binary code. When decoded as an audio waveform, it produced a rising sequence of tones repeating every 21 seconds. When plotted spectrographically, the tones formed a spiral, a golden one. 9. The human reaction. Religious leaders called it prophecy. Physicists called it noise. Governments called for calm. Social media didn't listen. Crowds gathered outside observatories holding green lights. Every 21 seconds, thousands of people lifted their phones toward the sky. It was ritual masquerading as science, or maybe the other way around. Dr. Eleanor Chan, the MIT cognitive scientist from earlier chapters, wrote in an essay, "We're witnessing collective pattern synchronization, humanity aligning to a metronome, not of its own making." 10. The moment of truth. On December 12th, NASA finally broke its silence. At a press briefing broadcast worldwide, Administrator Laura Chavez appeared flanked by representatives from ESA, JAXA, and ISRO. Behind them, a still image, 3I, Atlas, glowing against the blackness of space. Chavez read slowly. "After careful analysis, we confirm that 3I Atlas is following a stable outbound trajectory, consistent with a natural object. However, several optical and radio anomalies remain under investigation. We have no evidence of artificial origin." The room erupted in questions. None were answered. The feed cut after 6 minutes. 11. The aftermath. That night, astronomers at the European Southern Observatory captured one final anomaly. As 3I Atlas drifted past the orbit of Mars, the rhythmic pulses slowed. 21 seconds became 22, then 23. By the next morning, they stopped altogether. The object faded, steady, quiet, receding into the outer dark. But at 03:14 UTC, the same time the last pulse vanished, Radio telescopes across the southern hemisphere picked up a broadband whisper spanning the hydrogen line. 3 bursts, separated by exactly 3 minutes and 14 seconds. Pi, a final signature, a closing bracket, and then nothing. Chapter 7. The Global Reaction. By sunrise on December 13th, the world was no longer arguing about whether 3I Atlas existed. It was arguing about what it meant. One newsquake. Every major network led with the same headline: NASA confirms 3I Atlas anomalies, no artificial evidence found. In 6 words, the statement managed to sound both absolute and evasive. Within minutes, translations flooded global feeds. Hashtags mutated. No evidence became no answer. Across time zones, televisions glowed in living rooms and cafes, in mosques and bars and subway tunnels. For the first time since the moon landing, more than 4 billion people watched the same press feed within 24 hours. And for the first time, they didn't believe what they were told. 2. The split of belief. Sociologists at Oxford later called it the bifurcation moment. The instant humanity fractured not by nation, but by narrative. One side clung to the rational. The phi pulses were coincidence, the hydrogen line flare a natural resonance, the binary file a corrupted echo. The other side saw design. To them, the golden ratio, the 21-second metronome, and the pi-timed final burst were deliberate markers, a handshake written in math. Polls conducted that week showed a dead split. 47% believed 3I Atlas was natural, 46% believed otherwise, 7% refused to answer. The margin of mystery had never been so thin. 3. Government control and leaks. Within days, agencies moved from denial to damage control. The United Nations announced the formation of an Interstellar Observation Task Force, chaired by representatives from NASA, ESA, Roscosmos, and the Chinese CNSA. Its first act was to restrict public telescope feeds to ensure data integrity. That same night, a group calling itself Signal Commons hacked into an unused NOAA server and leaked 43 gigabytes of archived telemetry. Among the files were cross-correlation plots showing perfect phase alignment between the October radio pulses and the December optical flashes. The pattern was mathematical, not random. Governments labeled the group cyber vigilantes. To the public, they became heroes. 4 markets and money. The reaction wasn't limited to belief. By December 15th, global markets convulsed. Investors fled aerospace stocks, fearing exposure to classified technologies. Meanwhile, cryptocurrency coins with names like Ficoin and Atlas Protocol exploded in value. Speculators treated mathematics as currency. The idea of contact had become monetized before it had even been proven. A London trader summed it up: "If something out there knows math better than we do, I want to own the numbers." 5. Faith and fear. Religious leaders faced an existential test. The Vatican called an emergency synod. The Dalai Lama live-streamed a calm smile. American evangelicals split between welcoming angels and fearing deception. Mosques filled with silent prayer. In Hindu temples, priests drew spirals on the floor. The golden ratio in chalk turned into ritual geometry. Father Luigi Moretti, a Jesuit astronomer, addressed a crowd outside Castel Gandolfo. "If the heavens speak in mathematics, then mathematics is one more language of God." His words spread faster than any official statement. 6. Science under siege. Inside academia, the split was brutal. Young researchers pushed for open data. Senior scientists urged caution. Conferences devolved into shouting matches. Peer-reviewed journals refused to publish papers mentioning communication or pattern, labeling them speculative. Avi Loeb, undeterred, submitted a preprint titled "Structured Emission and the Probability of Intent." Within 12 hours, the PDF had over 2 million downloads. The journal's website crashed. Meanwhile, at the European Southern Observatory, Dr. Mira Kellen resigned. Her final post read simply, "I can't work for silence." 7. The media storm documentaries multiplied overnight. Netflix announced The Green Visitor. Vice released The Silence Gap. TikTok flooded with 21-second videos, each syncopated to the pulse of Three-Eye Atlas, overlaid with quotes from philosophers and prophets. By Christmas, an estimated 2 billion people had seen at least one piece of Atlas-related media. It wasn't just news anymore. It was culture. The comet had become a mirror for everything humanity wanted to see: hope, fear, unity, apocalypse. 8. The backlash. Not everyone embraced it. A counter-movement called Project Parallax emerged, accusing governments of orchestrating a global hoax to distract from economic instability. Their manifesto read, "If you control the telescope, you control the truth." Hacktivists replaced NASA's homepage banner with those exact words before being taken offline. Protests erupted in Los Angeles, Berlin, Seoul, and São Paulo. Placards carried two equations, phi 1, 618, and pi, or 314, crossed out in red as if exercising the numbers themselves. 9. Personal stories. In the noise, quiet stories surfaced. A schoolteacher in Nairobi built a sundial that blinked every 21 seconds using solar LEDs, teaching children to count cosmic rhythm. An elderly astronomer in Kyoto, blind from cataracts, tuned a ham radio and claimed he could hear the pulse between the static. A prisoner in Texas tattooed the golden spiral down his arm, saying, "It keeps time when the world forgets how." The global reaction wasn't a single voice. It was a choir of confusion, fear singing harmony with wonder. 10. The political front. By December 20th, parliaments were convening emergency sessions. The United States proposed the Cosmic Data Transparency Act. The European Union drafted the Atlas Accord. Behind closed doors, intelligence agencies ran war games under the scenario name Event Phi. None of their outcomes were optimistic. Leaked memos from the Pentagon revealed simulations on potential psychological collapse if contact were confirmed. One phrase recurred: "Contain the narrative." 11. New Year's Eve. As the year closed, something strange happened. At exactly midnight in each time zone, amateur astronomers reported a brief flicker from Three-Eye Atlas, one flash per region, as if the object were following the planet's rotation. NASA denied any correlation, but social networks timed the flashes perfectly. For a full 24 hours, humanity celebrated not the new year, but a synchronized blink from the dark. People called it the shared second. 12. Morning after. When the glow faded, a collective exhaustion settled. Economies trembled. Religions rewrote doctrine. Universities split apart. And through it all, the object kept moving outward. Silent, indifferent, its pulse fading into cosmic background. Dr. Eleanor Chan summed it up on a PBS panel. "We thought we were searching for intelligence in the universe. Instead, the search revealed our own." 13. The quiet between heartbeats. By January 5th, the pulse could no longer be detected. Three-Eye Atlas had slipped past the orbit of Jupiter, its signal below noise floor. But in cities across the world, clock towers and digital art installations continued to flash every 21 seconds. A heartbeat humanity refused to stop hearing. It had become more than a mystery. It was rhythm, memory, a reminder that for one brief moment, the entire planet looked up together. Chapter 8. The Aftermath and the Message. By January 20th, 2026, the green pulse of Three-Eye Atlas had faded into radio noise. The visitor was now well beyond the orbit of Jupiter, slipping back toward interstellar darkness. Yet its echo refused to die. Every 21 seconds, across data centers and desktop computers, in the rhythmic blink of routers and heart monitors, humanity still imagined a beat. People had begun to listen, even when there was nothing left to hear. 1. The first decrypt. 2 weeks after NASA's final press briefing, a file surfaced on the dark web titled Phi Raw v3.bin. It was only 341 kilobytes, the same size as the mysterious binary sequence leaked in December. Within hours, coders worldwide began dissecting it. At first, it looked like meaningless digital noise. Then a graduate student in Warsaw, Alexei Nowak, noticed a repeating header of 144 bytes, Fibonacci numbers embedded in binary spacing. When he converted the bits into base 12 and mapped them onto a polar coordinate grid, an image emerged, a spiral intersecting three dots aligned at exact angular ratios of 1.618 to 3.14. He posted a single screenshot to X with the caption, "It's geometry." The post reached 10 million views before his account vanished. 2. The Phi Group. Within days, volunteer analysts organized into an open collective called the Phi Group. Data scientists, linguists, musicians, cryptographers, even theologians joined in. Their headquarters wasn't a building. It was a shared server hosted across 20 countries, constantly mirrored to avoid shutdown. They approached the file like scripture. Every interval, every bit, every harmonic carried potential meaning. And slowly, consensus formed around one hypothesis. The file wasn't a language at all. It was a map. When plotted in three-dimensional coordinates using the sun as origin, the data points formed a faint arc extending beyond the ecliptic, ending near a region of space 60 light-years away, in the direction of the constellation Lyra. Lyra, the same sector where the WOW signal had originated nearly half a century earlier. 3. The government response. By February, the leaks had grown too large to ignore. NASA and ESA released a joint statement. No credible evidence suggests intentional communication. The binary data in question are artifacts produced by compression errors during telemetry. But independent labs countered with reproducible results. Even the compression algorithm NASA cited couldn't create Fibonacci-weighted symmetry. The denial only fueled curiosity. Behind the scenes, classified documents from the Interstellar Observation Task Force began circulating. One, dated January 17th, summarized internal analysis of the Phi file. Preliminary spatial correlation consistent with coordinates of stellar system HD 1176051, Lyra region. Further investigation suspended pending directive. The stamp at the bottom read, Level 5 clearance, Atlas Com protocol. 4. Mathematics turns to music. Unable to read the code as text, researchers converted it to sound. When the binary was translated into audible frequencies, the result wasn't random static. It was melodic. Tones ascended and fell in perfect golden ratio intervals, repeating with the same 21-second rhythm. Composer Inés Velázquez released an orchestral piece titled The Atlas Score. It blended the decoded tones with human choirs singing prime numbers. Within a week, it topped global streaming charts. Audiences wept without knowing why. Neuroscientists at MIT later confirmed that the sequence activated the brain's temporal lobe pattern recognition centers, the same regions stimulated by language and prayer. The message, whatever it was, spoke in the mathematics of emotion. 5. The second file. On March 3rd, a new anomaly appeared. Data from the Parker Solar Probe, still transmitting from inside the orbit of Mercury, contained a 68 kilobyte attachment labeled Atlas Relay 2 DAT. It was encrypted in an unknown checksum, but displayed the same Fibonacci rhythm. NASA called it a telemetry echo. The Phi Group disagreed. They claimed the checksum matched the hash of the first Phi file, meaning the probe had received a response after 3i Atlas was already gone. For days, the internet debated. Could the message be bouncing through the heliosphere, like a code in a cosmic LAN? 6. The cultural renaissance. By spring, the obsession evolved into art, architecture, and religion. Cities lit buildings in pulsating green. Designers embedded the golden spiral into fashion lines. Engineers tuned wind turbines to rotate in Phi proportional ratios. What began as conspiracy had turned into aesthetics. University enrollments in mathematics and astrophysics doubled. Children painted spirals on playground walls. One slogan spread across billboards. If the universe spoke once, we should be ready to listen twice. 7. Voices of dissent. Not everyone was listening in harmony. A faction within the scientific establishment called the Pragmatists demanded that servers hosting the Phi data be shut down. They warned of data contamination, self-reinforcing noise that could mimic meaning. Humans see patterns because we need to, wrote astrophysicist Dr. Ravi Menon. It doesn't mean the cosmos is speaking back. Yet each attempt to erase the files only spread them further. By May, the Phi code existed on more than 1 million devices, embedded in art, music, and AI datasets. Deleting it had become impossible. 8. The Lyra transmission. Then, in June, radio telescopes in Chile and South Africa detected something faint coming from the Lyra region, a narrowband signal echoing the exact harmonic structure of the Phi tones. Delay calculations suggested the signal had left that region roughly 60 years ago, around 1966. If that timeline was accurate, the transmission predated every known interstellar visitor. Meaning the Phi code wasn't a reply, it was a summons. 9. The private meeting. In late June, representatives from NASA, ESA, and the newly formed UN Office of Cosmic Intelligence met in Geneva. The session was closed to media, but a single sentence leaked from the transcript. If we acknowledge intentionality, every system of meaning on this planet must be rewritten. The leak ignited protests outside the Palais des Nations. Banners read, "Don't translate it for us. Let us hear it ourselves." 10. The revelation hypothesis. By July, the Phi group published their most controversial paper. The binary pattern describes a trajectory, not words, but motion. It ends not in Lyra, but back here, in the inner solar system, arriving around year 2070. They argued that 3I Atlas was not a messenger, but a marker, a physical breadcrumb in a much larger map. Its departure vector and the data's coordinates converged on a point in space that Earth would occupy 44 years from now. The implication was staggering. The message wasn't to us, it was for something that would be here after us. 11. The philosophical shift universities launched new fields: transchronological communication, astrosemiotics, cosmic archaeology. Debate turned existential. If 3I Atlas had planted a code designed to be found long after its passing, then humanity had just intercepted someone else's time capsule. Were we reading an ancient greeting or a future instruction? Dr. Eleanor Chan wrote in Nature Mind, "Maybe intelligence isn't about conversation. Maybe it's about leaving breadcrumbs for whoever survives long enough to notice." 12. The quiet. Between worlds. By August 26, the Lyra signal faded. No new data arrived. The world, now accustomed to cosmic suspense, settled into a strange calm. Museums opened exhibits displaying the decoded spirals as art. Children memorized Fibonacci sequences the way earlier generations memorized prayers. 3I Atlas had become a myth in real time, a story both true and unfinished. 13. One last ping. On September 9th, an amateur array in New Zealand detected a faint repeating tone from deep space. Only 3 pulses, spaced by exactly 3 minutes and 14 seconds. Pi. Again. Then silence. The team verified their instruments twice. No satellite, no terrestrial source. They labeled the file Phi resonance.final.wav and uploaded it to the public. The pattern, once plotted, drew a single curve, a spiral folding inward until it met its origin, a loop, a return. And below the final coordinate line, the faint signature from the binary header reappeared. Not random, not error, but text rendered in ASCII. "We will meet at the center." Chapter 9. The Countdown to the Return. By the spring of 2030, the words, "We will meet at the center," had already been carved into concrete, etched on satellites, and whispered in prayer. What began as a binary echo had become the first global creed written in mathematics. The world was changing again, this time deliberately. 1. The Atlas Array. In April, the United Nations ratified the Atlas Accord, a resolution committing more than 60 nations to a single project: the construction of a planetary-scale observatory network capable of receiving signals from the Lyra direction. The blueprint called it the Atlas Array, not a single telescope, but a distributed system, 1,000 ground-based dishes synchronized to atomic clocks, orbiting satellites acting as phased relays, and a massive data core buried beneath the Nevada desert known as the Center. The name wasn't poetic. It was literal. Every dish, every antenna, every receiver pointed toward a calculated spatial coordinate, the point in space Earth would occupy on August 12, 2070, the day the message said they would meet us. 2. A planet rewired. The building of the Atlas Array was unlike any project before it. Architects called it the Second Internet, a network not for humans, but for communication with the unknown. Fiber lines stretched across continents, connecting observatories in deserts, mountains, and tundras. AI-managed servers filtered noise, hunting for the golden ratio harmonics that define the Phi code. Every country contributed in its own way. Japan built quantum receivers capable of measuring single photon phase shifts. Brazil donated orbital platforms in equatorial orbits. India launched the Chandra II, a deep space listening probe stationed halfway between Earth and Mars. The United States, reeling from decades of political division, found its unity again, not in ideology, but in curiosity. 3. The cultural shift. Humanity's old divisions eroded. Religions adopted new cosmologies, merging faith with mathematics. Cathedrals projected spirals of green light on their ceilings. Mosques aligned prayer times to 21-second intervals. Buddhist monasteries taught Fibonacci sequences as meditation mantras. A new generation was born under what the media called the Atlas era. Children grew up learning that mathematics might be sacred, not the language of gods, but the handwriting of the universe itself. 4. The age of listening. By 2040, the Atlas Array was fully operational. Its synchronized antennas spanned the globe, linked by laser relays across the ionosphere. The combined aperture effectively turned Earth into a single listening ear, 20,000 kilometers wide. For the first time, we could hear whispers 100 light-years away. And we did. On July 21, 2041, the array detected a narrowband pulse from Lyra, identical in structure to the original Phi code but reversed, like a playback running backward. It lasted exactly 3 minutes and 14 seconds. Analysis confirmed it wasn't reflection or noise, it was transmission. But when decoded, the file didn't contain coordinates. It contained a formula. 5. The equation of convergence. The formula described a trajectory, two curves spiraling toward a mutual point. When simulated, they represented two bodies, one leaving Lyra, one within our solar system, both converging on the same coordinate, the center, on August 12, 2070. Physicist Dr. Kellen, now reinstated after a decade in exile, called it the blueprint of rendezvous. In her paper, she wrote, "If we trust the math, something is already moving, something coming here, not to conquer, to connect." The world held its breath. 6. The Atlas missions. To prepare, space agencies began launching probes, the Atlas Y, 2, and the 3 missions, each designed to extend humanity's reach along the predicted inbound vector. Atlas Y reached the orbit of Saturn by 2045. Atlas II followed 5 years later, carrying quantum transponders calibrated to the golden ratio modulation. Every probe transmitted the same signal. The human heartbeat slowed to 1 beat every 21 seconds. Our way of saying, "We heard you." Atlas III carried a payload unlike any before, a crystalline archive encoded with the totality of human knowledge, music, languages, and genomes. Humanity's mirror gift. 7. The philosophy of the center. As the countdown shortened, philosophy itself shifted. The concept of center ceased to mean geography. It became spiritual, temporal, mathematical, the point of perfect symmetry between sender and receiver. To meet at the center was to align with meaning itself. New schools of thought emerged: Phi theology, chrono-humanism, mathematical Buddhism, each teaching that to understand the universe, we must first synchronize with it. 8. The Atlas children. By the early 2050s, the first generation born after the discovery, the Atlas children, came of age. They spoke in patterns, drew spirals instinctively, counted in Fibonacci rhythms. Music evolved into sequences of prime-based harmonics. Poetry used ratios instead of rhymes. It wasn't taught, it was inherited, as if something in humanity's collective unconscious had tuned itself to phi. 9. The warning in the data. In 2057, during a system-wide recalibration, technicians at the Nevada Core discovered a secondary layer hidden beneath the original message, an encrypted modulation that only became visible when processed through quantum noise filters. The translation revealed a new sequence of symbols forming a simple progression. 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, stop. After that, the waveform cut off abruptly. Astrophysicists debated its meaning. Some called it confirmation, an acknowledgement of the Fibonacci code. Others saw it as caution. The sequence of creation halted mid-growth. A warning, perhaps, that there's a point beyond which even the universe doesn't expand safely. 10. The doubt returns. By 2060, enthusiasm gave way to anxiety. The inbound trajectory confirmed a faint object, roughly 100 meters across, approaching from Lyra at 1/10 the speed of light. Too fast for any known natural body. Too slow to be a relativistic artifact. Controlled deceleration. Governments began constructing planetary defense systems as precaution. News networks oscillated between awe and panic. The public called it the return. 11. The silence before the meeting. By 2065, the inbound craft or object was visible to long-range telescopes. It emitted no light, no heat, no radio noise. A perfect void. Its predicted arrival matched the countdown exactly. Religions converged for the first time in recorded history, declaring August 12, 2070, a global day of stillness. No wars, no broadcasts, no speech. Only listening. Children born that year were named Atlas, Phi, Lyra. 12. The final preparations. In the deserts of Nevada, beneath the Atlas Array's core, engineers built a chamber lined with superconductive mirrors, a vault designed to capture and amplify whatever came through. They called it the listening room. Dr. Kellen, now in her 70s, recorded the final message to the future. We don't know what's coming, only that it kept its promise. When they said, "We will meet at the center," they gave us time to prepare. The rest is up to whether we deserve to understand. 13. The countdown. As the year 2070 drew near, time itself felt mechanical. Every city clock, every pulse monitor, every data system synced to the same rhythm, 21 seconds per beat. The world became one metronome, counting toward dawn. August 11th, 2070. 24 hours left. The night was silent. Not the silence of absence, but of anticipation. Telescopes across the world turned toward the same coordinate. And in that shared quiet, as the stars wheeled overhead, humanity stood exactly where the message had predicted. At the center. The next moment would decide whether we had been witnesses or participants. Chapter 10. The Arrival at the Center. August 12th, 2070. For the first time in history, the entire planet was awake at the same hour. Every transmitter, telescope, and antenna of the Atlas Array pointed toward the exact coordinate calculated 45 years earlier. The countdown ticked in silence. 21 seconds between each pulse, the global heartbeat that had unified billions. At 0 hour, nothing happened. Then, everything did. 1. The shadow. At 0403 UTC, the Chandra 2 relay between Earth and Mars detected a shadow crossing its optical field. It wasn't absence, it was distortion, like light bending around an invisible lens. Gravitational readings spiked, a brief anomaly equivalent to a small moon's mass compressed into something no larger than a mountain. Observers at the Nevada Core gasped as space itself seemed to ripple on their screens. The distortion stabilized, resolving into a shape. Elongated, symmetrical, rotating slowly. Every telescope in the array confirmed the same image. A dark cylinder, metallic, featureless. It was 3I Atlas, back again, but different. 2. The stillness. Unlike its last approach, there was no tail, no glow, no radio pulse. It simply hovered, motionless relative to Earth, 50,000 kilometers above the Pacific. The laws of orbital mechanics said that was impossible. It wasn't in orbit, it was balanced. For 6 minutes, nothing moved. Then a faint hum rose through the array's sensors, a frequency so low it was felt before it was heard, a vibration in the bones, in the floor, in the air itself. Humans across continents stopped breathing at once. Cameras shook, birds went silent, the planet itself seemed to lean forward. 3. The descent. From the object's underside, a thin column of green light extended toward the Earth, descending through clouds, the ocean, the crust, ending at one precise location, the Nevada core. At that exact moment, seismic sensors there recorded zero ground movement, an impossible stillness. Inside the listening room, Dr. Mira Kellen stood alone, her face illuminated by the glow of instruments. The column of light passed straight through the reinforced roof without heat or damage, filling the chamber with a soft luminescence. In the center of the room, a sphere of mist condensed into form, not metal, not plasma, but geometry made visible. A spiral, turning inward, phi made flesh. 4. The voice. The hum shifted into rhythm, then came modulation. Not words, but tones, harmonic intervals forming equations in sound. The frequencies aligned to the golden ratio, translating seamlessly into numbers. Computers processed them into text. The first decoded line appeared on every monitor. We have arrived at the center. Seconds later, another line. The distance between sender and receiver is now 0. Kellen's voice trembled. Are you from Lyra? The system translated the next pulse. From Lyra and beyond Lyra, we are the echo of those who left before you spoke. 5. The message. The pulse continued, flowing like breath. Each sequence projected images, not photographs, but memory fields. Planets forming, stars collapsing, civilizations rising and dissolving like smoke. They weren't showing their world, they were showing ours, past, present, future, all folded together. You called us by understanding. You became part of the equation. Around the world, the same message repeated through every array node, translated into every language simultaneously. Screens in schools, mosques, and bars displayed the same words. Billions watched as numbers became sentences. Sentences became something like prayer. Intelligence is not origin. It is convergence. Then the tone changed, a higher resonance, almost a whisper. We were not the first. 6. The mirror field. Inside the Nevada chamber, the spiral brightened, transforming into a translucent mirror. For a moment, Kellen saw her own reflection. Then behind it, infinite others stacked like recursion, each slightly different. Some were older, younger, alien, human, all versions of life reaching the same point. The voice returned. Every world that survives long enough builds an atlas. Every atlas leads here. The implication struck like gravity. They weren't visitors. They were archivists, curators of consciousness from countless civilizations, meeting where timelines intersected. The center wasn't a place. It was a moment. 7. The integration outside, global sensors registered quantum fluctuations enveloping the planet, a field expanding from the array outward until it encompassed all of Earth. No harm, no heat, just resonance. Every human heartbeat synchronized, 21 seconds apart, then 20, then 19. Time itself seemed to adjust. Data streams showed impossible coherence, brainwaves across millions of people oscillating in perfect phase alignment. For the first time, humanity's noise became harmony. You are ready to join the continuum, the voice said. Your world will not end, it will connect. 8. The lightfall. The green column retracted, pulling back toward the object. At its base, a lattice of light unfolded, 12 spirals intertwining into one, forming a gateway of pure geometry. Telescopes recorded gravitational waves rippling outward like rings on water. The final transmission appeared across every screen. We leave you the map of your own design. Follow the spiral. When you understand, you will find us again. Then, without acceleration, the object began to fade, not departing, but dissolving, pixel by pixel, until the stars shone through it. At 0444 UTC, it was gone. No debris, no explosion, only silence. 9. The day after. When dawn broke, nothing looked different, but everything felt altered. The world's clocks had all shifted by exactly 1 millisecond, as if time itself had been recalibrated. Quantum experiments later confirmed that fundamental constants, Planck length, fine structure constant, had changed at the 8th decimal. Reality had been tuned. Children born that week exhibited strange synchronization patterns in their neural oscillations, subtle but measurable. They were called the resonant generation. 10. The new beginning. In the aftermath, governments dissolved their secrecy. The Atlas array became a shared monument, not of fear, but of memory. Humanity had not been invaded, saved, or judged. It had been invited. Dr. Kellen's final statement, recorded 1 hour before her death months later, summed up what no mathematics could. We expected a message from the stars. What we received was permission to belong. 11. The infinite return. Years later, as the resonant children grew, one by one they began to hum, a low tone repeating every 21 seconds. When recorded and combined, their frequencies formed the same harmonic ratio as the first phi signal. It wasn't imitation, it was inheritance. Humanity had become the next messenger in the continuum, the next Atlas. And somewhere beyond Lyra, across the spiral arms of the galaxy, another world was already building its first telescope, wondering if it was alone. It would not be. Because the echo always finds the center.